everybody, and welcome back to another review, this time of Tomb Raider 2013. As many of you may know, recently there has been in the gaming world news that they are talking about making a fourth in the installment for the Survivor Trilogy series. As you guys know, there have been two other series between the years of 1996 and 2008. And so this is the third series installment by Tomb Raider. So who knows? Maybe this will be the last one in the installment series for the Survivor trilogy. Who knows? But hopefully you guys enjoy this review for the Tomb Raider 2013 edition. There will be references to the 1996 and 2008 a little bit because I've played a little bit of those, especially as a little Lee. So with that said, we're gonna go ahead and continue. In case you guys have never been a part of my gaming reviews or first time watching, I evaluate on actual categories based on actual research because when I started doing these reviews, I wanted to make sure that it was actual things that I could cover, and making sure those things were covered in the review. So this is how I do it. I do it based on story, graphics, music, characters, controls, and gameplay. I don't know why gameplay does not have a bullet point, but that's okay. Um, Gameplay is also something I scrutinize a little bit, for lack of a better word. Um, and all my reviews do contain spoilers. So if you're not wanting to be spoiled by this game, even though it's been out for over a decade, yeah, over a decade, um, please don't watch this video and find another review video if possible, because I have beaten the game. I have 100%ed it. So if you're wanting something that does not talk about any spoilers, please stop now and go find another video. And I do apologize um, if you were hoping this video would explain things more. But if you don't care about spoilers or you're just wanting to be informed, like I am usually, you're in the right place. So with that said, let's go ahead and go to the story. So it is set literally the year it came out, 2013. Um, I think it's kind of funny because the game released in 2013. They were like, oh yeah, let's set the game in the year 2013 when Laura is literally 21 years old. So it's kind of an interesting story. She's just graduated from college, and she's trying to find the lost treasure of Queen Himiko. This is kind of after the events of her father passing. And her best friend, I believe her name is, I don't remember her name right now, but Laura's best friend talks about the legend of Queen Himiko and how it's on this island called Yamatai. Yamatai is, I believe, a real island. I don't know if it got renamed and stuff, but this was actual, like, historically, like, it did exist, just like the legend of Queen Himiko, because that's what the story is discovering, is about this legend of Queen Himiko, uh, which, funny enough, the name means, like, sun child or sun daughter, and refers to, like, based on the brief research I've been doing, uh, Amaterasu references, which, if you guys don't know, Amaterasu is the Japanese god, um, of, like, the heavens and stuff, and a lot of the, the heavens and sun references is because of Amaterasu, and Queen Himiko is no exception from that, and what would predate, like, kind of like, like how the whole sun stuff, like sun sun started in that culture. If I am wrong, please correct me, because I don't claim to be an expert, but um that's what the game is basically discovering, is like the Sun Queen, which is Queen Himiko. And the story is true to an extent, which I hope will satisfy some people. Like it's not 100% accurate. If you're wanting to like learn more about Queen Himiko and stuff, research like I did. Research because a lot of this game like embellishes, which is normal because it's game logic, not real logic. So, what are some pros and cons for this story? I like that the fact that it's based on a true story. It's not 100% true, but like that they actually use real life stuff. Because I'm not sure about all the other games because I've never played all the way through for all of them. But having like actual history kind of incorporated into a game is kind of like clever. Especially if like like you're not a big history nerd or anything like that, like I am because I graduated with an English degree. It kind of makes it nice to kind of explore a little history without it being like an actual history lesson. And it also enhances the story of Laura's beginning prior to her becoming and being the Tomb Raider. And it's also a character growth story, which is really nice because when we first started the series with the first timeline, we didn't get a lot of this character growth or like, a lot of backstory. It just kind of was left ambiguously. So it kind of restores the whole like, character growth story, like where were the origins of her journey? Like why is she so fearless the way she is now kind of deal. But not all of the story is, like it's not perfect. There are going to be some flaws. Like it embellishes a little bit to fit the Tomb Raider story. Um I believe like the Solari and stuff like that, like the thunderstorms cuz I was not finding any references to the thunderstorms and the weather. Um that was the embellishment a little bit there for the Tomb Raider stuff. There's probably more, but mainly I kind of focused on like, I know this isn't 100% true because if it was, that's kind of scary. But like the storms and stuff, that was kind of embellished to kind of keep with the game logic of you're trapped on this island. You can't go and get help. You have to survive, which this timeline is considered the Survivor trilogy, although it's going to be adding another game now. Um, but yeah, the Survivor series, uh, it's just kind of like, for lack of a better word, it embellishes. Like it there's probably more things that it embellished, but those were like the main parts of the story that they embellished. And it's a lot different from like the two timelines we have of the Tomb Raider. Um, I know like for a fact, like when you see the other two timelines, this Laura is completely different from the other two timelines. Angel of Darkness is the one I really remember the most. That was part of the first timeline, I believe. And Laura is just very fearless. Like Laura was never like kind of like the what do I do? I can't do this and just trying to find this inner courage um and stuff and being like brave and fearless. Like it's good for the character growth story, but it just kind of feels weird. Um, Especially since like, yeah, we know she just graduated from college, but that's all we really know aside from her father passing away and she has a best friend that's tagging along with her for this, along with some other friends on the endurance crew. Um, which her best friend is Sam, now that I remember. Uh, so it's a lot of differences because also in the other two timelines, like Laura's resources, she doesn't have really friends. And it's kind of weird to see her with friends too. Also, this story felt like short and rushed. Like I would go back to one area 3 times and stuff, and we would be exploring and whatnot. But it was like, oh, you need to go do this, you need to go do that. Like a very beginning, very rushy, and it was still rushy towards the end. So there wasn't like any breather room. Like, yeah, you could go explore, but there was no like, way to talk with characters about what was going on. Um, there was no way to kind of do more development of the story, I felt like, except this urgency. And maybe they wanted it short and rush, but this sense of urgency to get off this island, like it didn't sit well with me. So, based on the pros and cons, I gave this an 8 out of 10 because it is a very strong story. There's a lot of things that could fix. I'm not saying it has to remove the embellishment, but for me, like embellishing over the top, it just doesn't sit well with me sometimes. So that's why I got an 8 out of 10. Um, if they had fixed like the other stuff, like it being short and rushed and actually fleshing it out a little bit more, I think it could have been an even better story. So yeah, my rating for this is 8 out of 10. Now graphics. Now a lot of these graphics, because I didn't want to do a lot of bullet points, so that way you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. So this one is like later on in the game, at the shipwreck beach. So you see a lot of the realistic details, like the ships, the towers, the bridge, and stuff like that. Like it's very detailed, very realistic. But when you look at the trees, I know it's very hard with trees, but the trees are not really, they don't scream real to me. They scream more like a painting that you would find in the Renaissance era or something like that. Like it just doesn't scream realistic. But like if you see like kind of far in the distance trees, like in the fog and stuff like that, that makes sense for it to be like artistic more than realistic. Um, but for the trees that like Laura literally can see, like to the her left and to her right, that are right nearby this bridge, like it just doesn't make sense for it to be a artsy tree. So I I had a lot of cons and pros, I think, for this as well. Or maybe not a lot, but it is a lot and rambly details. So, like I said, it is very detailed and it's also handled with care because I feel like they did this based on a lot of references because that's what a lot of gaming artists do. If they do base it on real life stuff, they'll find a bunch of references to use and then work on incorporating those references into the game to where it looks realistic enough. And it's also handled, like I said, with a lot of care because it there's like a inaccuracy detail that can lead to a lot of people being like really upset about it. So they did a really good job of making sure to handle it with care because if it's real life stuff, like you can't mess up the real life stuff. Because there's no way to come back from that. And people will nitpick on that type of stuff. So they did a really good job with that. Um, my cons, and I don't know if like other people would agree with this, but it felt too realistic. Especially with the combat. So when you get hit and stuff, and there's like, you know, explosives, You hear the ringing. But what really bugged me was like if I got hit with one of those, um, my vision and like there's like kind of like the motion blur flash um graphics that can cause serious health issues for certain people. Um, that was just a big er, like it irked me. And I'm like, yeah, I get you want this to be realistic, but there is such a thing as too realistic and it being like a health concern. So I think, and because they don't include that as a warning when you start the game, I think that is something that I feel like should be rectified, especially since there have been games where they've gotten lawsuits because of things like that, and it's been a very big deal to include like a warning of that. And some games have been really good about it, but will Tomb Raider do it? I don't know, but I really hope they do consider it. And the lack of details on the trees, the flora, like you could kind of see like closer, like the flora on the ground, it just looks more artsy than real. And if you're gonna commit to real, I feel like you need to go all the way, but not like where it could cause health issues. Like I said, the trees and stuff like that. Like unless it's far away, like I understand it being a little artsy, but if it's like right in front of your face, like you gotta go ham on the detail. You really do. So with the pros and cons weighed on this, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because they are really good graphics. But if they had fixed the combat graphic issues with like being hit and where like flashes and stuff, like I think it would even be a lot better. Music. So this is the composer for the music, Jason Graves. You might recognize him. He did Dead Space, Dark Pictures, The Order 1886, Friday the 13th, the game before it got removed, and so much more. And not only that, but he is also famous in the TV and movie musician composition world. Aside from the gaming musician, being a musician composer for games. So he dabbles in everything. And I believe like when I looked up his current age, it's like 52, but he doesn't even look like he's 52, guys. He doesn't. And he did such an amazing job because he goes all out on the music, guys. He really does. Like with Dead Space, Dark Pictures, The Order 1886, Friday the 13th, the game. Like he is very meticulous, I feel like, in making sure like the immersion feels real. And I just mwah. Like I was like when I saw the Dark Pictures games, I was like, oh wait, I think I recognized that name. And sure enough, I did it because I was like, wait. And so I went through like kind of like my other Dark Picture walkthrough videos because I've done it for Little Hope, Man of Medan, and House of Ashes. And I was like, oh my god, he is there. He is literally there. So like I was just kind of like squealing, fangirling a little bit because I really love the Dark Picture series the most. Um, because me and two other individuals, we have made Dark Pictures our thing because we kind of call ourselves now the Scary Sisters because we really love the Dark Pictures and that's how we kind of came together. So like seeing that he composed the music for this game, just beautiful, beautiful. However, I'm really sorry, but I have to keep it honest and real. There are some pros and cons for the music. It is beautifully composed. I agree. Like, I love orchestral music. Like, if you make a game with the orchestral music, I'm going to mention that it's beautifully composed, unless I don't think it's beautifully composed. I'm a sucker for orchestral music, so I might be a little biased on that. But it also, in all honesty, does work for like aesthetically for the moments that occur in the game. Like the transition is seamless. So it's not just like, oh, you hear music, then it stops, and then you hear different music that's like polar opposite. So I think he did a really good job of making sure like it would transition really good. However, when you first launched the game, I didn't realize it was going to be that way. It was hella loud. I was like, ugh. Like when I did it the first time, I almost threw my old headset off because it was so loud. And this was after turning it down on my headset. However, thankfully there's a way to adjust it, but like the initial volume that they have it, because they always set game volume at 100. I don't think music should always be set at 100 for a game volume, but that's just me. But it was hella loud. I did not like it. And as somebody who has ADHD with autistic characteristics, it's not good on us to have very loud music. Like, yeah, like maybe set the music at 50, when you launch the game, so that way you're not blowing people's eardrums out. But it just as a fair warning, it is loud, especially on the home screen. There's nothing we could really do on the home screen, unfortunately. But when you log into the game and go to settings and stuff, you could turn it down or turn it off. I turned it off because I was like, nah, we're not gonna do this. So yeah, it was just kind of one of those things that I was just like, it's too loud. Get me away from this kind of deal. Cause yeah. And I feel like that's kind of sad because it's like a lot of people will just quit if it's like messing up with their senses, especially if you're neurodivergent. So that's just kind of something to consider if you are neurodivergent, especially like myself, where you don't handle loud noises very well. You may want to just like start the game muted and then turn down the volume. Also, because I know this composer, like with Dark Pictures, like I know at least with Dark Pictures, the audio is not really confirmed, and I wish he was like, because I know like Plague Tale's composer has vocalized that the second game is non-copyrighted music, but Jason Graves does not do that, and I would recommend if you aren't planning on streaming or recording this, because I was looking this up, and I saw that there was like a big Steam discussion about it, and um, it just caused a lot of issues, and it really makes it difficult because you can't really talk about the music if it's not in the video. And I played this with music not in the video but outside the video. Um, and it's just like it would not be recommended if you're planning on streaming or recording this to do it because it may cause a copyright strike. That's always been my rule of thumb with streaming and recording is turning off the game music because a lot of the game music out there might cause a copyright strike. So that's just fair warning. But because of that, I gave it a 6 out of 10. If the music wasn't so loud and if I knew it was safe for streaming, because I would like games to include like stream safe music for stuff like this because we have it in games like, Disney Dreamlight Valley, and Smite and stuff like that, like games like that. Now, if they could do that for games like, Tomb Raider, and stuff like that, that would be immensely even better. So that's why I gave it a 6 out of 10 because I think a lot of game musician composers could really benefit considering, a stream friendly version for the game. At least for those of us that want to share the storytelling part of the game. Next are the characters. So these are the kind of like the main characters, but obviously the Solari, which is led by Matthias, and then Queen Himiko and her storm guard. I don't know if there actually, was a storm guard, but that's what it's called in the game. So those are kind of our two main antagonists in the game. Then we have the entire crew of the Endurance. Now, there's only 4 characters that don't survive on the crew, and that's Alex, Roth, Grim, and the guy I don't really like, whose name I can never remember, the TV show guy that's on like the far right. I'm sorry, I don't care remember his name because he was a traitor. Um, but we still have Laura, we still have Sam, we still have Jonah, we have um the engineer, whose name I can't remember because she's also kind of mean to Laura. But we have like all these wonderful characters that are fully fleshed out and stuff. Um, and especially since a lot of these characters have room to grow, um, just a lot of growth and a lot of like different personalities. It kind of gives a little vibe of like Dark Pictures a little bit with the crew of the Endurance. Aside from that, like it's pretty good for the most part. Yeah, I don't think I have very much else to say about the characters on this slide. So let's go to the pros and cons. So, like I said, they were fully developed. They're very engaging. Um, and in a sense, because of how much you get to learn about these characters in the short period of time, you get kind of personally invested. However, as I mentioned, there are some characters that perish. Um, and, some I feel like also don't get fully developed and we don't get to see again later on. The only one that has been consistent from what I've seen in all 3 games so far has been Jonah. I think Jonah is kind of the love interest for Laura, who's like, I am this adorable little puppy who has been at your side. Pick me because I'm still here for you, kind of deal. Because we don't see Sam after the first game at all. I don't even know if they're still friends after that first game. We never really hear about it, Sam. And then the engineer, we don't even hear about again either. So it's just kind of all of these, like, we don't really get, like, if you're going to invest character development into all these characters, to have them perish eventually, like I don't think it makes sense to invest that much into them. Um, it they're meant to serve a role and then just no longer exist, like don't fully invest into them because then some people are going to be fully invested into those characters. So like that was a con that I was very strongly like, mm. And then we have 2 different antagonists in this game. Now, Himiko is not a predominant antagonist, but is a supported antagonist kind of for the Solari because she wants an heir that she could transfer her power to. So, like she's not stuck on this island. But with Matthias, he doesn't care about what the Sun Queen wants. He just cares about getting off the island and thinks the Sun Queen is the key to their freedom because he doesn't really care about what she wants. He just cares about, along with the rest of the Solari, just cares about getting home. Now, that makes it really difficult in a game because if there's 2 different conflicting antagonists, it like, they don't really clash, they don't really do anything except kinda support each other, but, like, in a weird way. Like, there's no really good word or way to explain it other than it's just 2 different goals, and that just kind of I think ruins the story a little bit more than helping the story, because then it's like, okay, we don't have to worry about just the Solari, we have to worry about the Storm Guard, but the Storm Guard is not being fully controlled by Himiko, the Sun Queen that we encounter at the very end of the game. And it's like the constant antagonist that we do see, even the leader of, is the Solari, which is led by Matthias. So it it's really weird, and it just didn't sit well with me on that front. So for that reason, I know that it's probably going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. I had to give it a 5 out of 10 because it's just there was a lot of issues with the character stuff. If they had fixed a lot of that before they released the game the same year that they made the game, I think it would have been a lot better. But I think they were kind of maybe idolizing the ideology of the game being released the same year as it was the events of the game. I think got to them a little bit. At least that's just my personal opinion. So that's why it also got kind of a 5 out of 10. If mainly character stuff, nothing involving like the fantasy of the 2013 stuff. So yeah, 5 out of 10. Next, controls. So I only played on the Xbox. I don't know and couldn't really find it for like PlayStation and mouse and keyboard. But this is what mainly I used for controls. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of stuff. A lot of stuff for this game. And it's kind of a little overwhelming when you see the controls, but it's not really much we could do because I think on console, like you can try to change some of it, maybe, but otherwise it's kind of set this way. Um, so it's just kind of like, ugh, this is very, very overwhelming. So pros and cons for controls. I like how with the like, controls, it helps with like tutorials by like showing what to do. I don't know if there's like a little tutorial section. I can't really remember at this point, but I do know that they go through it as you get items and stuff, and they like show you which buttons to press and stuff, which is really nice, especially if you're learning how to do stuff for the very first time. But there was so much con to it. For me, I was slightly discomforted. Like it was a slight discomfort because it just felt like I was like wrapping my hands fully around the controller to be able to do stuff sometimes. And that's just not comfortable for me. Like I'm kind of like, okay, I'll just do this. Like, like I'm still moving my hands around, but I'm not like trying to do it at weird, discomforting angles and stuff to get to where I need to go in the game. So that's just kind of a personally thing, but like there was some slight discomfort there. Uh, it was very hard to also find in settings. Like it took a hot minute to find in settings because I did not know where it was at because there was no like controls section. So I had to look around because it was like, okay, I forgot how to do something in the game. And so I was like, okay, how do I do this? And it took literally 20 to 30 minutes to look for it. And it's just like it shouldn't be that hard to find if somebody forgets a setting. And it's also very sensitive because there will be times where I didn't do something and then it just did it because very sensitive controls. So it got a 5 out of 10 because of like all the cons mainly. But the settings do make sense and I think you can change them and they actually show you like, what buttons to use when you do the tutorial stuff for like whenever you get a new item and all that. But if if it was like less sensitive and stuff like that, I think it would be a lot better. Gameplay. I'll as I've been mentioning before, gameplay teaches while also allowing exploration. So, like you still have the main story and stuff, and you can, after you complete the main story, relaunch the game and go back and explore the island. So that way, if you missed any of the artifacts and stuff, you can. Um, but you could easily just do the exploration before you complete the game, because then it'll allow you to get scraps before the very last fight in the game. And it also, like I said, leaves so much to do after completing the main story, and it, based on historical stories. Like, gameplay, that's what it mainly kind of felt like for the most part. So what are some pros and cons? It's very fun. Like exploring and stuff, like, very fun. Finding the objects, learning more about the artifacts, and I feel like they did a lot of that based on real life artifacts. And there is like maybe some that they kind of did based on like other historical stuff that could occur, or has occurred in the past. And sometimes there were like little secrets on the artifacts that you could learn more about the artifacts on. So that's also kind of cool too. And like I said, there was always tutorials for something new. If there was like a new item or something, it was always a tutorial for it. But what were some of the cons? Too much exploration. Like it was very hard to find stuff. Um, and it just felt like, okay, if I've been to that area, like, can I know that I've been to that area? And there was just no way of doing that. So it just felt like I was always exploring, I was always looking around. Um, and it just didn't really make it very fun to do whenever I was trying to 100% the game. So I would always have to look up resources. Again, it was a short story. Like, if you just did the story, easily feels like maybe 1 or 2 days, which is considered short in the gaming world, in my opinion. Like, if it can be easily beaten 1 or 2 days, like, short story. The realism, like I said, with the combat and stuff, it just did not make it fun. Um, okay. Scrap hunt. I remember why I wrote it that way. So, in order to upgrade your items in the game, you have to find scrap. Depending on the difficulty, you may have to like explore areas a lot, hence why too much exploration is bolded, because that also requires too much exploration. And you're hunting for like scraps to upgrade your stuff. And it's just like, if you find everything and you've been exploring, like, and you still don't have everything upgraded before the end of the game, it just does not seem fair to feel like you have to keep hunting scrap before you can complete the game, so that way you have everything upgraded to the best of your ability. And the inaccessible areas. So there are some areas in the game where you can't access, like, but you could like explore and be like, oh yeah, I can't do this yet because I don't have XYZ. But in the starter area, there was an area that you could explore. However, um, it was inaccessible because you didn't have an item and you couldn't go into that area. So they kind of force you to go back to areas. And it just is like, well, what if I don't want to go back to that specific area because I completed everything else but that? So overall, that got a 7 out of 10. If it had fixed some of the cons, it probably would have been an 8 or 9. But 7 out of 10. So our overall rating is a 38 out of 60, based on the categories, which is reduced to 19 out of 30 for simplified fraction, or 63.333 repeating percent. So with that said, I am going to be starting tomorrow with uh, Baldur's Gate 3. We're going to be doing a Let's Play series, so this is hopefully going to allow me to be able to record some other videos while I work on this Let's Play series. We're doing a modded version of the game because there is a mode that I'm like, oh, this would be so awesome to watch. So cool to kind of explore, but it is called Deadlier Honor Mode. And it's a modded version of like Honor Mode, but more difficult. So I kind of wanted to play that through and see how difficult it could be with some additional mods, cosmetic and otherwise. So with that said, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video.